Even if you don't think that you want to be a leader or stand at the front of the room, that leadership is happening in a circular space with creative work. That's the one thing I really do try to teach in my practice by really giving the performers space to have their own sense of leadership and understand that leadership is multidimensional.
Well, kia ora everyone. Joining me today is Malia Johnston. Malia is a choreographer and performance director and has created a significant repertoire over the past 20 years. A recipient of the Creative New Zealand Choreographic Fellowship in 2013, Malia's strong collaborative interests have seen her work with an incredibly diverse range of performers and arts organisations. Malia has created new works for a range of national and international arts companies, has worked in the world of wearable arts and is commissioned on a regular basis to create performance works for companies and the tertiary dance environment. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Malia. It sounds like you keep yourself very busy. What are you working on at the moment?
Oh, kia ora, Sasha. Yes, at the moment I'm working on, we've just finished doing a show for the International Arts Festival, which was 5 years in the making. It is called Belle, a Performance of Air. It's a collaboration between aerialists and dancers and set and lighting design with live music. And working on a piece next week with Rodney Bell. It's a new development, which is called Rodney Bell and Guests. And it is sort of like a This Is Your Life kind of approach to dance and improv, where 15 artists will join him on the floor with improvisation, and the audience sits in a very casual environment. Also working on the opening ceremony for the choir games, which is coming to Aotearoa this year. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot to juggle.
Yeah. And also WOW, which I've been directing for a while, and so that's ongoing, and we start rehearsals in August. So yeah, there's a juggling a few things.
Going on. A lot of those projects, I imagine as well, they take quite a while to all come together.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of planning?
A lot of planning, a lot of kōrero with the team, a lot of collaboration with all of these pieces or projects. So it's and they sort of interweave as well. I work with artists across, multiple projects. So yeah, lots of collaboration, lots of Zooms.
Yeah, I imagine. And so your creative journey, it's been a long one. Where did it start out?
I guess how far back do you go? But I think I've always really been interested in performance from very young. I used to put performances on for my grandparents in the lounge, and I think they enjoyed it. That I used to make them sit there, and I'd create a theatre with my brother and my sister, even when they were 2 and 3. So I was really interested in that idea of imaginary worlds and music. My parents had a record player. My mum was a double bass player, and my dad was a teacher at primary schools in the middle of the country, where we would have dress-up box and we would do shows at the end of the year. And being in the theatre, even from a really young age, I got this really, really special feeling in my stomach when I was in that space, and I just loved it. So, but because we were in the middle of nowhere, I didn't really start dancing until I was a teenager, when I could sort of organise to get myself to classes. It was a big journey to get to the local town. And then when I was just left school, I started a dance school. So I started teaching when I was about 18 and ran a school for about 5 years before I decided I really wanted to train. I didn't actually know that you could. I had no idea that dance could be something that you trained in as an adult. I had it in my mind back then, I think probably because it was in the 80s, that you had to do ballet and all these things that I hadn't done. So when I came across by accident a training course in Auckland at the age of 23, that was the first time I did contemporary and ballet classes and started the journey of choreography. But yeah.
So that's quite entrepreneurial as an 18-year-old, setting yourself up with some dance classes. You don't start out dancing as a kid to thinking you're going to, take it in as a career move.
Yeah, I think I was just really into dancing, and I wanted to teach, and I knew nothing about it. And I went to the local stadium in Christchurch. It was Pioneer Stadium, actually, and just said, hello, do you have any jobs for dance teachers? And they said no. And I was like, oh, okay, well, if you ever do, I'm really keen. And they rang me up about 3 months later and actually said, would you like to start up a course? And so I turned up on the first day and I said, right, what do you want me to teach? And they were like, oh, it's up to you. So it was my first class. I had no idea. And I just remember the class. It's like a nightmare, really, that the children just ran rings around me because I just really was in the deep end and I knew nothing at that stage about teaching what I was going to teach. So then I thought, oh, well, I need a system. So I joined the New Zealand Modern Association of Dance and then started teaching that syllabus. I learned it from, you get packages through the email, through the mail and videos that you learn the syllabus of. So yeah, I just threw myself into the deep end, and then after a while I decided to just do that independently. So ran my own school for a while. We did shows and performances and all sorts of stuff with the kids. It was cool.
I guess you don't start dancing. You start it to have fun, right? And it's something that, obviously gives you something inside, like you were saying earlier. Is that something you still feel as you go forward and you're obviously making a living out of it? Is there still that joy that you would have got as a kid when you really loved it?
Yeah, totally, 100%. I mean, I think it's that for me, the dance was a way to express ideas and an internal dialogue about how to express myself in the world from a cultural, social perspective. And it became a real treasure for me to be able to do that. Like I did it in my bedroom or downstairs in my parents' house as a way to express some things that were going on. And I loved it. It was the thing that, I just had this, drive for it. And now, I'm not dancing myself as much, but I'm dancing with ideas and creating with people. And so I still have that feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, do you try to always surround yourself with like-minded people or, to sort of seek new inspiration, or do you try and stretch yourself a little bit and work with people you haven't worked with before?
Both. I think they're both important. I definitely have long-term collaborative partners that have worked with me for a long time and deeply understand the process that we work in, and also deeply understand, I guess, the communication style of ideas. Because when you're trying to make something new, it's really hard to get out of your brain what that is. And so when you've developed long-term relationships, they understand that it's like a flow of, it's like a river, it sort of flows. But at the same time, I really love putting myself into new environments that challenge me and with new people, and to push my skill set in new environments. So I really do both, because, I find that that uncomfortable place of the new is where really interesting things grow. And that uncomfortable feeling is something that I've learned is really important.
Yeah. And so sometimes do you get stuck though? And if you do, how do you get around that?
Oh yeah, I think getting stuck is like totally part of any creative process. It sort of never it never goes away. It just reinvents itself in different ways and different projects. It can be on a number of levels. I guess it's where you confront the brick wall, and I guess then I go, well, over the years I've developed ways to know that brick wall is going to be there, and I'm looking for the door, and that it's not an issue. I'm aware of it. It doesn't make it easy, but you just have more tools to be able to kind of like go, okay, here's the problem, and then you go into problem solving mode, or go for a walk. Or put away the project for, half a day and then come back to it. Yeah.
And you obviously juggle a few projects at a time sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you keep it all in balance, and how do you stay focused and not get too work obsessed and normal life as well, fit that all in?
Yeah. I'm pretty work obsessed, but I love it. So I'm and my work-life balance is unique. I think everybody has a perception of their own kind of what that balance looks like. My life and the work kind of blend. Like the lines are very blurry in terms of they're very connected. A lot of my collaborators are my deeply close friends who I really enjoy spending time with, and I know their families, and so we have we have life together as well as the making. But the juggling thing, I find that things feed into each other so much, like the matrix of creative spaces. And when you're working on multiple projects, they're kind of like little silos that can talk to each other. So and I about probably in 2013 discovered this kind of process that I do, which is the choreography of time. I mean, it is the choreography that and the skills you're developing in the studio, which is really organized movement. So you're organizing movement, and then when I translated that into the organization of time, I realized that actually, that becomes quite expensive, and you can play with it. So yeah. I don't know if that
Can you
answers
just
your
explain
question.
that a little bit more to me?
Well, I guess when you look at time and you look at pressure, I mean, there is only so much time to do things. So it's kind of understanding the time frame, and I can kind of now understand time frames, and I really know how much I'm able to deliver within that time frame. So I feel more comfortable with that juggle. And a project where I learnt this was I was looking at developing a new, pushing myself actually through the choreographic fellowship, and one of my collaborators was like, I didn't want to do something in the normal way with the audience sitting, and we wanted to journey them through and have this immersive experience, which was the first time I'd done this. And it meant that multiple rooms were at play at once, which means that I couldn't see everything going. So I had to work out how to manage the direction of multiple spaces. And also I needed a lot more people. So in order to bring a lot more people in with not much money, we had to manage their time. So I was like, how much time does people have? And then they would say, well, I only have 2 hours to give you for the whole project. And so I would be like, right, with that 2 hours, I will cast them in this way. And so that taught me that, not everybody had to be in the room for the whole project, but that I could take those 2 hours and do this with it, and then kind of place that into the choreographic landscape and build a world with people's time given to the project, which was quite cool. And then I was able to apply that to myself a little bit. Yeah. But it can feel chaotic sometimes.
Can imagine. Yeah. So in light of that, how does your working day look? Is it quite structured, or do you go with the flow?
I definitely go with the flow. I think a lot of people would be like, God, she'd be a nightmare in a structured workspace. I do a lot of work from home, and my hours are slightly random. But if, I guess more so this year because I've got so many projects, I am trying to start early and get a lot of the things out of the way. But because I'm doing a lot of producing work, admin, as well as scheduling and working with people in that space, and then going into the studio. And when I'm in the studio, it's 9 to 5, focus on the performers in front of me and the cell phones off. But when I'm working at home, it's like all coming in left, right, and center. And I just sort of try to deal with the most important things first and then chip away. But yeah. So the working day can start sometimes at 7:30 or sometimes at 10, just depending on yeah. Also, how tired or energized you're feeling too. Yeah.
Yeah. People who would be hoping to set out on a similar path to yours, what sort of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting question to sort of kind of isolate that down into specific. It would depend on what they were wanting to do, because I think what I'm doing is now very different to what I started doing, but it's built from that space of choreography. So in the earlier days of my work, I was really interested in choreography, and I decided that, especially living in Aotearoa, that the opportunity to do choreography in a perceived way that I understood it to be, like you're in the studio with a bunch of dancers. I expanded what that was, and to get build up opportunity and work in multiple environments. So I took on interesting offers and choreographed and brought that choreography into different forms. I guess that's going to be not for everybody, but that was something that I did, which informed back into my practice when I did get the opportunity to be with the dancers in that choreographic space with dance, when you're doing one of those projects where you're really focusing on the form. Yeah. So I was a bit of a yes person. I just took all the opportunities and chose to learn on the job. I also put myself into situations where I had little experience and really learned on the job. I also put my hand up early days with companies that I wanted to work with and said, I want to be in the room. You might not have a role for me, but I want to be there and I'm keen. And I got jobs from that because people, really appreciate having somebody there that's super keen to be part of something, and that turns up and is up for it, being up for it. Yeah.
That seems to be quite an important thing when I talk to creatives, is just actually you're not always going to get paid straight away. It's actually just
not at the beginning
kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's relationships, and especially in this country when we're going to be working together and seeing each other in multiple spaces. I worked a lot as a waitress and behind a bar for like 8 years, and I found a job where the boss understood my passion, understood that was my focus. But when I was at that job, I was really committed to that work so that I could have it when I didn't have a job that I was really passionate about. And that was a lifesaver because it meant that in between I had this other thing. And I think in that way, I also used to pretend that the restaurant was mine. So I'd be like, just for fun, because it made it more interesting if I thought, okay, these are my customers and this is my business. So I just have this whole theatre of working in a way that made me feel inspired to work in that space. And we had regulars and have fun with them. And I learned so much off all of those other jobs that I did that really also, again, that matrix of working in life that fed into the performance landscape as well.
And you said earlier that you used to say yes to everything type of thing. Are you able now to pick and choose what you want to do?
Much more able to. I still say yes to the weird things, like if something comes up that's like, well, I've never, I don't know anything about that. Like I'm doing the choir games this year and I knew nothing about, I didn't even know there was a choir game. So instantly intrigued, and I've never worked with choirs. And so it just kind of is an opportunity for me in that way to just open up a whole new learning and meet people in a whole world that I didn't even know existed until that offer came in. So, I still say yes to things based on that, but definitely, I mean, the arts world, it's never forever, and all contracts are, they have an ending. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's more secure, but I definitely have the space to kind of pick out things I'm really keen to do. Yeah.
And do you have to hustle for work, or and also do you always have something lined up for the next project?
Yeah, I remember when I was very young that I always needed something to look forward to. This was just a part of my personality that when I was young, I used to, so I'm always planning. So, but this idea of 5-year planning doesn't exist. I mean, there's always something just over the, maybe into the next year. The older I've gotten, the further into the future I can plan a bit. But there's definitely the hustle. Definitely the hustle with, especially if you're making your own work. That's where the hustle is huge. So that never stops. Yeah.
And have you got certain tools that you put in place to help manage all of the different things that you're doing and keeping it all, I don't know, all balanced and making sure that you've got a good diary going? And
I have a space that I put all of the it's like a Google's folder that I share with everybody, and it's just a big calendar of kind of like what's actually happening, and then the ideas that we'd like to happen and where they could all interconnect or work. So I've developed some of my own admin organizational things, but they're a little bit fluid.
And where would you say you are at the moment in your creative journey?
I was thinking about this the other day. I'm just really this year, especially, I guess over the last few years, I feel really good about it. Like it feels like a lot of things have sort of like landed. Work that we had aspirations to do, big ambitious work has just sort of landed, and the work that's gone into that feels like completed, and that feels really good. So I'm in this kind of space at the moment where I feel very humble and happy about the journey, and excited for the future, um, and also really interested in being able to share now with people that are coming into the space that perhaps I was at when I was in my 20s, which actually feels not that long ago, but it is, it's a while ago now. So yeah, it's cool when you meet people that you can sort of see that energy that you recognize that you had, and you're like, okay, this is cool, and that you've got something to maybe share with people. Yeah.
And you're probably in situations sometimes where you're either teaching or choreographing with younger people who are coming through. What's something that you often try and pass on to them?
Autonomy. I really do try to create an environment in which where there's leadership happening on multiple levels in the room. I feel like that is the best thing, that you never sit back as a creative. You're participating, even if you don't think that you want to be a leader, or stand at the front of the room. That leadership is happening in a circular space with creative work. It's not, for me, a pyramid of one person. It's a holistic thing that we're doing as a community in the space. And I think that's the one thing I really do try to teach in my practice, by really giving the performers space to have their own sense of leadership, and understand that leadership is multidimensional. You can lead in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be this one way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've just got a few quick fire Q&A questions just for you to answer to finish off.
Mm-hmm.
Starting off with, what does your planning look like around your work?
Ooh. Depending on what project it is. So if it's something like a bit cyclic, like with WoW, like I have a sort of a well-worn schedule of when the bullseyes of when everything needs to occur. And that is based on my understanding of the knock-on effect of how all the departments will interface. So I've kind of developed, okay, if we don't have the music by this date, that means this, and we've got to have the costuming and the lighting plan and the AV, and working with people. So I really try to stay organized, especially if it's a big project which a lot of people are feeding into, trying to be ahead of the game and give people lots of information so that they can get on with their jobs is key for something like that. With my own creative work, when we're making new stuff, it's a little bit similar, where I try to get as much information to all the people out as early as I can, so that they can then take on that. Like, the earlier you give information over to creatives, they start mulling on it. So they're going to come to the space a little bit more prepared than if it's all just very fresh on the first day. So I try to feed that. I guess some people would say I'm organised. I like try to be quite structured, but it is also a little bit fluid with me. Some people would see that I don't have that classic, very organised day, but yeah. So with my own work, the planning around that really is, I go into full artist mode, and we make the work first, and then if it's good, which you hope it will be, I have this aspiration of how that might play out, and then start looking for the opportunities behind that. So it is, and I'm looking, and I'm also, it's not like as ordered as I would be doing with something annual, but it's sort of more like casting a net. I like throw out, we made this thing to just lots of people, and maybe one or two come back and be like, but there's more of it just sort of goes out. a bit more like that.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that answered your question or
No,
not.
absolutely it does, yeah. Now, also as a creative, do you experience moments of self-doubt or imposter syndrome? And if so, how do you motivate and reassure yourself to keep going?
Oh yes, all the time. Like, yeah, I've had I think that comes with the territory. Conversations with friends, going for walks, walking uphill has been it's an interesting thing of what happens to the physicality in the body. And even though like artists or dancers are moving or might move in their practice, just this art of walking, which is a different type of energy flow in the body, is does amazing things for like processing things. So yeah, I found that walking was actually insanely good, especially uphill, because you get this.
Yeah, what's the uphill
Yeah,
thing?
I think because at the bottom of a hill, you're just like, oh God, here we go. And you kind of know that feeling that you sort of like, you sort of, it's annoying walking uphill sometimes, but when you get to the top, it feels so good. And then, and then on the way down, it's all about navigation because, it's like, it's just totally different. So I think your body is just actually engaging in the problem and then you come out the other side. It's amazing. So I use physical really helps. Yeah.
Metaphor for life, isn't it? Walking up a hill.
Yes.
Now, lastly, what has been one of your aha moments when you realise the grind has paid off?
I think it's always when an audience responds to something in a way that you hoped, but you don't know until a show. An audience is going to be honest, and they're going to respond how they're going to respond. You have no control over it, but when they respond and 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 I guess especially like when we did a work with Meri where we toured it to not only around Aotearoa but to Australia and then also into prisons, and we were getting people instantly talking to us instantly after the show because it just sort of opened something, and that's what we wanted, and it created instant dialogue and interest in relationship to their own struggles in life. Seeing Rodney's work and the way he's turned a lot of that into an art, that for me is the aha moment, or it always is. If we're working so hard on something and the audience responds, it just, that's it for me.
Oh, thank you so much for your time today, Malia. There's some great inspiration in there for people, and it's lovely to hear your story.
No, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. Yeah.